Hey there, garden sorcerers! Welcome back to Soil Sorcery Studio. Today we're settling one of the most fascinating debates in natural gardening. Which amendment actually grows more food? Seaweed from the ocean's depths or Comfrey, the ancient garden workhorse? This isn't just theoretical plant science. This is about real yields, actual harvests, and putting more food on your table using nature's own genius. By the end of this guide, you'll know exactly which one deserves prime real estate in your garden ecosystem, and, spoiler alert, the results might surprise you. Let's start with Comfrey, and honestly, calling this plant impressive would be a massive understatement. Comfrey possesses a taproot system that plunges deep into the subsoil, sometimes reaching down 10 feet or more, accessing mineral deposits that your tomatoes and peppers can only dream about. This root system acts like a biological mining operation, extracting potassium, phosphorus, calcium, and trace minerals from deep soil layers and concentrating them in its massive leaves. When you harvest those leaves and return them to your garden beds, you're essentially bringing deep earth fertility to the surface zone where your food crops live. The practical applications of Comfrey are remarkably versatile and forgiving for gardeners at any skill level. Comfrey tea, made by steeping leaves in water for 2 to 3 weeks, creates a potent liquid fertilizer that's particularly high in potassium, the nutrient responsible for fruit development and disease resistance. The chop and drop method is even simpler. Just cut the leaves and lay them directly around your plants as a living mulch that breaks down into pure nutrition. Throughout the growing season, a single Comfrey plant can be harvested multiple times, regenerating quickly and providing a constant supply of homegrown fertilizer. In observation plots dedicated to Comfrey amendments, plants consistently show vigorous leaf production, deep green coloration, and robust stem development from the very beginning of the season. The nitrogen-rich leaves decompose relatively quickly, making nutrients rapidly available to neighboring crops. Now, let's dive into seaweed, which brings an entirely different nutritional profile to your garden beds. Seaweed contains over 60 trace minerals and elements, many of which are increasingly depleted from terrestrial soils through centuries of intensive agriculture. Beyond minerals, seaweed harbors natural growth hormones, including cytokinins, auxins, and gibberellins that trigger remarkable responses in plants. Faster germination, increased root development, improved stress tolerance, and enhanced flowering. These aren't synthetic chemicals, they're the same compounds ocean plants use to thrive in one of Earth's most dynamic environments. Collecting and processing seaweed is pretty straightforward if you happen to live near the coast, but remember, responsible foraging means you should only take what's already washed ashore. Oh, and be sure to rinse it thoroughly to get rid of any excess salt. Now, for those of you who garden inland, don't worry. Liquid seaweed extracts and kelp meal are convenient alternatives. These products concentrate all the benefits of seaweed into forms that are super easy to use. In gardens where seaweed is used, the results can be quite different from those seen with Comfrey. Instead of just boosting vegetative growth, plants amended with seaweed often show accelerated flowering and increased fruit set. Plus, they tend to be noticeably more resilient to environmental stressors like drought or temperature fluctuations. It's like the growth hormones in seaweed optimize the plant's entire reproductive cycle, directing energy toward what gardeners care about the most: abundant harvests. When harvest time arrives and you actually weigh the yields from Comfrey-fed plots versus seaweed-treated plots against control beds, fascinating patterns emerge. Comfrey-amended gardens typically produce plants with larger overall biomass, more extensive foliage, and impressive vegetative growth. The sheer size of Comfrey-fed plants is often striking. However, seaweed treatments frequently edge ahead in the metrics that truly matter for food production: total fruit weight, number of harvestable fruits, and overall crop quality. The growth hormones in seaweed appear to direct plant energy more efficiently toward reproduction rather than just leaf production. The difference becomes especially pronounced with fruiting crops like tomatoes, peppers, squash, and beans, where seaweed-treated plants often produce 15 to 30% more harvestable yield by weight compared to Comfrey treatments, and sometimes even more compared to unfed controls. Leafy greens and root vegetables show less dramatic differences, with both amendments performing admirably. The real revelation is that seaweed's edge comes not from heavier individual fruits but from increased fruit set. More flowers successfully becoming mature produce, which translates directly to more food from the same garden space. Beyond raw yield numbers, practical considerations matter enormously for home gardeners. Comfrey requires establishing plants initially, which means waiting a year or two before full production begins, but once established, it's virtually free, maintenance-free, and produces abundance for decades. Seaweed requires either coastal access for foraging or purchasing processed products, making it potentially more expensive long-term but immediately available to any gardener. From an environmental perspective, both options shine as sustainable alternatives to synthetic fertilizers. Comfrey because it's endlessly renewable from your own land. Seaweed because it's a wild harvested resource that requires no farmland, no irrigation, and no inputs to produce. The ultimate answer isn't choosing one over the other, but understanding that each brings distinct advantages to your garden ecosystem. For maximum food production across diverse crops, seaweed holds a measurable edge, particularly for fruiting vegetables, where yield is paramount. However, the true garden sorcery happens when you combine both, using Comfrey's deep mine minerals to build long-term soil fertility while deploying seaweed's growth hormones to optimize every plant's productive potential. If you found this deep dive valuable, hit that subscribe button and share this with your fellow gardeners. Let's grow more food naturally together.